Hello, it's me, Harriet from Hobbling Handmades. Sorry it's been such a very long time since my last video. I have been super busy with my book, The Little Book of Stain Removal, which I'm going to talk about at the end because I know it's sometimes annoying when people go on a ramble at the start of a video, which is what I'm doing now. But I'll talk about that at the end because I have some things to show you with that. But today I thought I would talk to you about Sojo. Because that's one of the reasons I haven't been here amongst being busy and quite ill, because it's quite hot. My little heart doesn't like the heat. Having not as much Sojo as usual is part of the reason that I've been away, and I wrote a blog post about getting your Sojo back in January, but I thought it might be helpful to have a video as well, so I've linked the blog post in the first line of the description so that after the video you can go and read that, because that is a much more eloquent and less waffly way of getting the points across that I'm going to say in this video. But I thought I would just elaborate on some of the things that I mentioned in that post. So the first thing is, what is Sojo? I would class Sojo as sewing mojo is basically what it means, and that's kind of the motivation to sew, the excitement to sew, having inspiration and knowing what to make, and generally just wanting to sew. Because for most people in this community, sewing is a hobby rather than a job. So you can lose your Sojo, whereas if you sew as a job, if you're a dressmaker as a job, if you lose your Sojo, you kind of have to carry on anyway. But these are some ways that I think might be helpful for getting your Sojo back, because these are ways that have helped me. The first thing is figuring out why you've lost your Sojo. There are quite a few different reasons that you can lose it. There are loads more reasons than I am about to give you examples for, but these are some of the ones that I've come across. The first one is being burnt out. So if you've been kind of really intensely sewing for ages, or you've been giving yourself deadlines like, oh, I have to make this dress for this event and I want to wear it to then, because I know we all do that, we all get excited about certain events and wanting to wear something to that certain event, and then putting too much pressure on it and ending up being cross and frustrated and not actually finishing it anyway. And that's one of the main reasons that I lose my Sojo every now and then. The second reason is feeling inferior, and what I mean by that is kind of comparing yourself to other people, especially other people that are more skilled than you and are making things that you want to make but might not have the capacity to make, if that makes sense, or just someone that's got a bigger handmade wardrobe than you have. I know it's something that we all kind of experience with the social media, because it's so great to have such a loving sewing community and being able to see what everyone's made, especially on Instagram. That's where I go most of the time, and YouTube. And it's quite easy to just compare yourself to other people, like, oh, their things are better than mine, or I'll never be as good as them, or just things like that. I get that quite a lot, and I find that it really helps to just have a hiatus. Is that how you pronounce it? Hiatus? I think so. Just leaving social media for a while, basically. If you just kind of step back, say, okay, I'm not going to log into Instagram for a few days, I'm not going to go on YouTube and watch makes videos for a few days, I'm just going to do my own sewing and I'm going to be really pleased with the result. And I find what helps with that one, as well as obviously coming off of social media for a few days, sorry, I don't know what my hands are doing, is just kind of taking something really slow or making something really simple that you know you definitely can make. You've made it a few times maybe even, and just taking your time with it and making sure everything is really nicely finished and that sort of thing. Just really taking pride in what you're making so that you feel like you come out of it at the end with a really high quality garment. And then maybe just do that, take as long a break from social media as you need. Kind of, I feel like we all sort of feel obliged to post what we make on social media, but there's no need to do that. If you want to make something and not share it, that's absolutely fine. I forget to share most of my things, to be honest. But sometimes you just don't have to show anyone. It's fine, you don't need to do that. The next one, reason 3, why you might not be feeling the sewing as much as usual, is because you might have made a few things that haven't turned out as well as you'd hoped. Maybe they were too complicated, or you rushed them a bit, or something went wrong and it just got really annoying. Because that's something that I have experienced a lot as well. And in that instance, especially if you're mid-project and you're just not wanting to do it anymore, just fold it up, put it away somewhere, make something simple or something that you know you'll be able to make well and quickly, not necessarily quickly, just know something that you know you'll be able to make easily. Just something that you can whip up and wear and feel like you've made something and then go back to your other project. Or just kind of don't be pushing yourself with every single make, because even though it's really great to learn new skills and definitely challenge yourself, it can get quite frustrating, and it sort of, I find it leads a bit more to the comparison thing, is if you're feeling like you're struggling with a make and then seeing someone else make it really easily, that can definitely put you down a bit. So just put it away, put the difficult makes away for a minute and make a couple of really easy things. We'll cross the bridge of maybe it just never being finished in another video. That will be, I'm running Mend It Month in November over on the Clothing Care Co website, and one of the week prompts for that is going to be finishing unfinished projects. I know that was a bit of a tangent, but just put it to the side, forget about it for a bit, and then remember it in November when we do Mend It Month. Then reason 4 is you're bored of making what you've been making, and this is kind of similar to reason 3, but is ever so slightly different. So you might have been making a load of shirts in a row, whether you realise it or not. You might have made the same sort of garment quite a lot in a row, or using similar fabrics for a long time, or been making stuff for other people for a while, and you're just kind of a bit bored of it. So figure out what it is that you're bored of, whether that's the fabric, the pattern, or making stuff that is not for you, and do something different. Mix it up a little bit, maybe find something more challenging, or yeah, just find something different to make, and hopefully that will help a bit. But if your reason is just that you're feeling uninspired, as is probably the main reason, if you're not burnt out, or if you can't figure out any other reason other than feeling uninspired, here are some things that you can do to inspire yourself. The first thing that I would recommend is looking on the Foldline website or YouTube channel. I'll link that below. I'll link them both below, the YouTube channel and the website. And on the website, I really enjoy the pattern database, and you can just go through there are so many things that you can, it's so good. There are loads of filters that you can set so that you get just patterns that are like shirts by this particular designer with this sort of collar and this sort of fit, or dresses with this certain fit or length or amount of fabric that you have, and it's really great. They also do videos on the new pattern releases for the month. They also do Sewing the Trends, which is a video that I always really enjoy. Just their whole channel is so cool, and just them, they're both really lovely ladies, and I love them both. So yeah, the Foldline is definitely one that I would recommend. Number 2 is going through the Instagram of people whose style you really like. Oh, and something that I will mention now, I know it's a bit of self-promo, but I've got to do it. Over on my Hobbling Handmades Etsy shop, which I will put in the second line of the description, I have made a inspiration sewing printable. So basically, if you see something that you like, whether it's on the high street or if it's a pattern that you like or some outfit that someone's worn on Instagram, you can get the picture, or in a magazine, you can get the picture and you can plan out a me-made version of it. So for example, you could have a picture of Betty Draper from Mad Men, which is the example that I used, and then it's got boxes for possible fabrics, possible patterns, changes that you might want to make, a box for you to draw your own version of it, so the version that you're going to make, and just things like that. So if you wouldn't mind checking that out, that would be very handy. It's only £1.50, and it's a digital download, so you download it and then you can print it out as many times as you like. But I've left that in the description for if you happen to want to have a look at it and maybe buy it. But anyway, back to it. Look through Instagrams of people whose style you really like, print them off and put them in the Sewing Inspiration Printable that I have just mentioned. You could also organise your fabrics or do some fabric browsing, maybe put some patterns with some fabrics on the Inspiration Printable that I just mentioned. Just pair things up and figure out what you like, because when I organise my fabrics, I find loads of ideas whirling through my head and I suddenly get very excited about things that I'm going to make, and I end up ranting on to Mum for ages about what I'm going to be doing, and she doesn't care, but she listens anyway because she's lovely. So that's something that you could do, or you could watch a film or TV series that has clothes in that you know you'll like. Some suggestions that I really like is Mad Men, if you're into vintage sort of 50s, 60s fashion. Any Wes Anderson films, they're my go-to films when I need sewing inspiration, just because the colours are so consistent in every film, the outfits are so cool, everything's just super great, and I have loads of books about his films. But anyway, find something that you could watch on telly with things that you like. Go on Pinterest. That's obviously a great place to go for sewing inspiration and outfit inspiration. My Pinterest is also linked below. I have loads of pins. I'm really quite proud of my organisation on Pinterest. I have a things to sew thing, and then it's got subcategories, and I find that quite exciting. So hopefully you will find it quite helpful too, because there are loads of pins in that things to sew thing. So I'd recommend that. Pinterest is always great. Or if you can, go to a sewing meetup or a sewing event. This, I find being with other people who sew is the most inspiring thing really to do. So if you're able to, if there's a show coming up like the knitting and stitching show or the handmade fair or something like that, maybe get a ticket to something like that. Or if you're lucky enough to be going to the Sewing Weekender, which I am going to this year, I'm actually doing a talk this year, which again I'll mention at the end when I talk about my book. Or if you're not able to go to an event or have a meetup or anything, host your own. Maybe just meet up with one other person who sews, or go to a sewing class, or try and host your own event, like some meetup going shopping somewhere, because that would be so great. I find it really helpful talking to like-minded people. Even just message someone on Instagram and just talk to them, or ask for their opinion on a fabric or something like that, and you'll get into a conversation, because we all love to chat in the sewing community, and loads of ideas get suggested, and it's also great, and everyone is wonderful. The last category, no, the penultimate category, I'm sorry, are my glasses getting the, maybe I just won't put my head like that. Hopefully it's okay, or I'll just take them off. There we go, glasses are off. The last category is one that I find very important to talk about, and that is something that we all hear about a lot, and that's selfish sewing. There is no such thing as selfish sewing, in my opinion. You sew because it's your hobby and you enjoy doing it. Most of us in the sewing community, like I said, are hobby dressmakers rather than professional tailors or dressmakers. So you sew because it's your hobby and you love doing it. And I don't think there's any reason you feel pressured to make or mend something for someone else. Like, just because you can sew doesn't mean that you have to be obliged to make something for someone else. And I don't like the fact that selfish sewing is even really a term, because we shouldn't feel bad about wanting to sew for ourselves. Sewing is quite expensive. You have to buy the fabric, you have to have the machine, it takes a long time, and I always end up quite emotionally attached to whatever I've made. So kind of going through that and then giving it to someone else. Again, like I said, if you enjoy sewing for other people or it's your job, this doesn't apply. If you love sewing for other people more than you like sewing for yourself, do that. That's absolutely fine. It's your hobby. Do what you want with it. Don't feel like if you buy something and someone says, oh, who are you making it for? Just be like, it's for me. I sew. That's the reason I sew. I make my own clothes. I don't want to be... No. Unless you want to make it for someone else, that's fine. Just don't feel pressured into having to make something for someone else. Don't feel pressured into taking on alterations and not being paid for them. If you're making something for someone, try and get a little bit of reimbursement for it, because people can't expect you to pay for the fabric. And even if they just give you the money for the fabric, that's all I do. Not with Mum. I make Mum her own things, obviously, because I love her and I like making things for her. But just don't feel bad about making things for yourself, is what I mean. This bit is way better explained on my blog post, so please do read that, because this has turned into a rant. But just, there's no such thing as selfish sewing, because it's a hobby. Hobbies cannot be selfish. You can't be a selfish horse rider or a selfish golfer or a selfish reader. Those are just not things that exist. You sew because it's relaxing, you sew because it's your hobby, you sew because you want to. I'm just going to move on to the last category because I could go on about this forever. The last category is don't force it. Oh, I just cricked my neck. Don't force it. Just don't force your sewing. If you're not inspired and if you're not feeling it, just allow yourself to have a rest. I find that if I try and force something that I'm not feeling, it just kind of makes it worse. It seems to just push you in the wrong direction. So just say, okay, I'm going to take a step back from it for a minute. I'm not going to look at any sewing videos. I'm not going to go on Instagram. I'll just try something else. Just do a different hobby for a while and then come back to it afterwards. Sometimes you just need a little step back, and there's no shame in that because we can't all feel inspired all of the time, and there's no reason that you should force it. And yeah, just don't force it if you don't want to. That's all fine. So those are my tips for getting your Sojo back, or kind of eventually getting your Sojo back. There's no kind of time limit on how long it will take for you to be feeling inspired again. Sometimes there's just one thing that seems to be like, yes, brainwave, this is what I want to be making now. But yeah, don't pressure yourself, just maybe go through the steps if you want to be sewing again. If not, if you're happy having a break, then just take a break. So now I will move on to talking about the things that I said I would leave until the end of the video. I will quickly address first that sorry I've been so absent from Instagram and bad at replying to comments and emails and things. I've found the heat to be really exhausting for my heart condition. I've been having quite a few seizures and therefore more dislocations and therefore more pain. At the moment we're going through a big dealio of trying to tweak my pain medication, which is frustrating in itself. But at the end of September, I'm very excited to announce, well not announce really, but I'm just excited about it. I've been accepted onto a 3-week rehabilitation program for my EDS. My consultant was saying for a long time that she thinks it would be really beneficial for it, but because my seizures were so out of control at the time, I wasn't able to go on the waiting list. But now that we've sort of gotten them a bit more under control, apart from in the heat, but now that I'm having them a bit less when it's not hot, I've been accepted and I went through the waiting list really quickly, and I'm going to do my rehab starting the 24th of September. So I'm going to try and pre-record videos for those 3 weeks, but for those 3 weeks I won't be replying to comments or anything probably at all, because I will be exhausted all the time and I will be busy all the time. So I'll address that later when it is closer to it. I just thought I'd let you know now. And the most exciting thing that I wanted to talk about is my book. If you haven't heard about it, basically I'm releasing a book next month in August called The Little Book of Stain Removal, and that's on my other website. It's kind of the business that I own. I wouldn't really count it as a business because it's not enough to make a living off of, but I do want to make a living off of it in the future. And that's my website, Clothing Care Co. And that is a website all about, I'll link the video up in the corner and down below where I talk about when I launched Clothing Care Co a few months ago, so that you can hear properly what it's all about there. But basically it's about looking after your clothes, making your clothes last longer, things you can do in the making process to make your clothes last longer. And my first thing that I'm releasing as an actual product is going to be a physical book called The Little Book of Stain Removal. And I'm doing loads of different stains. If my blog post is up about what will be in the book, I will link that below as well. But there are loads of different stains. I think I've got about 50 or 60, and there's also different methods, and each one of those stains has its own thing. I've got little illustrations, I've got a glossary, I've got just loads of tips, and I've made it as interesting as I can because I know that it's a boring topic, but it's one that is handy to know about, and there's not really enough information about it, I don't think. So the pre-orders are out for that now. I'm going to link that below if you would like to pre-order one. And today, which is what I was going to show you, but they haven't arrived yet, so I'll link my Instagram below and I'll post it on Instagram. But I've ordered my postcards, which basically, at the Sewing Weekender, I've been asked by the lovely ladies who run it, the Fold line, so that's Kate and Rachel, they asked me if I could do a talk as Clothing Care Co about my main tips for looking after your clothes, and of course I said yes. It was such an honour to be asked, and I've made up little postcards with the main categories and main bullet points on them for what I believe to be just, I mean, there are more things than I could fit on a postcard, but I've put what I think are the most integral things onto the postcard and directed to a few certain blog posts on my blog on Clothing Care Co. And so with every order of the Little Book of Stain Removal, I'm going to put my thank you notes on the back of the postcard with the key points, and hopefully a discount code for if you order anything in the future. And I will also be giving those out at the Sewing Weekender when I do my talk, and there will be a Sewing Weekender discount code on the back of that as well. But I really appreciate it if you have ordered one. They are £10 and they ship to anywhere in the world. I'm finding it kind of difficult to put a price on the shipping, so in the future, so after August, the shipping prices will probably go up for certain countries, so maybe just buy one now when I don't know how much to charge, and you'll probably get shipping for a bargain. But yeah, it's £10 plus P&P. I've put a lot of thought into what they look like, into the colour schemes, into the packaging. I'm really excited about the packaging, and I'm going to do, when I have a physical copy, I will be doing some video footage of how I pack the orders and how I wrap them up and sending them out, and also a sort of tour of the book, if that makes any sense, just so that you can see more what's inside. But I'll leave the link to pre-order one if you'd like below, or just to look up what you think. There's no pressure to pre-order one. Those are linked below, as will be everything that I've mentioned in the video. I am wearing the Tilly and the Buttons Mimi blouse in an Alexander Henry print, which I got from the Fabric Fox, if you're wondering. Now I'm going to go and be horizontal for a while because my hips are aching after sitting on the floor. Might watch an episode of Queer Eye, which I've recently gotten quite violently into. I've binge watched it. Yeah, and just do some more work on the book. I'm so excited to release it for you, and I'm so excited to show you because it's been a lot of months of hard work and I'm quite proud of it. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to stop rambling. Hopefully I will be able to be more present on Instagram, but that's not really my priority right now. I'm just trying to feel up to my usual standard of feeling mildly functional, rather than needing to take a nap every hour. So I'll be off now because this is turning into my usual just waffle at the end of the video. I'll hope to see you soon. Hopefully I'll have a video out next week. Bye!